Welcome back to Lean and Define. This is Mozzie, NASM certified personal trainer. So I'm back at the beach. All right. So the question today is about isolation exercise. Like, should I do isolation exercise? Is isolation exercise important? For those who don't know what isolation exercise is, there's generally like the two main categories of exercise that people mention. One is compound exercises or compound movements, which work multiple muscle groups at the same time. That's your like bench press, your rows, your squats, deadlifts, things like that. Then you have your isolation exercise. That can be things like face pulls, bicep curls, tricep extensions, tricep pushdowns, quad extensions. There's like a variety of different isolation exercises. There's a lot of different types out there, and there could be many for just one single muscle group, for example, like the biceps or the triceps. So, anyways, that kind of covers that. So, one thing I do want to mention up front is I think generally, if you're doing both compound movements and isolation exercises in a workout, try to do your compound movements first before you get to your isolation. That's like a general principle that is out there. So, as far as why to do them, there's some really good reasons as to why you should do isolation exercises. For one, it does add variety to your training, which I think is important to keep things fun. I know as a personal trainer, I feel that pressure on me to keep exercises feeling fresh. And I do not mean that I try to change the exercise every time I work out with people, but that I feel that over time they do feel like they're getting variety and with their exercises, and that they're not doing the same thing for months and months and months, but that there's new stuff being incorporated. So I do think that it adds variety to the training. For those and for people who maybe aren't even incorporating it right now, uh, like if some guys, for example, they go to the gym and they have this kind of boring routine where all they do is like squats, bench, row, squat, bench, row, squat, bench, row, week in and week out, or girls who just go to the gym and it's just they do hip thrusts and then they do like I don't know a dumbbell bench press or something. Isolation can be a way to add variety to your training. Another good reason to do isolation exercises is that strengthening isolation exercises can strengthen your other lifts. So if you do a bench press or you do a squat, and in the case of the bench press, if you have a stronger triceps, then it can contribute to your strength on the other exercises. Same thing with your quads. I would think that if you have stronger quads, by doing isolation quad work like quad extensions, that would contribute to your strength on your squats because that also uses your quad muscles. So that's another good reason to add isolation exercise to your routine. Another important reason, and maybe the most important reason for this channel to do isolation work, is there's aesthetic reasons to do it. Um, when you isolation um, can be used to shape and sculpt the body in specific ways. So can compound movements, but I think there's a specific way of shaping the muscles or targeting certain muscle groups that you can do when you do um, isolation work that is very specific. For example, somebody wants to improve their posture. One thing they can do is target the rear delts, the back of the shoulders, by doing something like face pulls. With a resistance band, you can hook it up and do this motion. What I understand is that when you have stronger rear delts, it's easier to have your shoulders in a more pulled back position, which is a good thing when it comes to your posture. So that's one thing that you can use, and maybe that's it is kind of sculpting your body because if you build this muscle, obviously it'll add a little bit to your shoulders or more than a little bit. The other aspect is it is in a way working on you, assisting your posture, which has aesthetic benefits. Other good reasons I know, for example, working on your triceps. A lot of guys want bigger arms. The triceps are 2/3 of your arm, so doing a lot of isolation tricep work can be a good way to build up the size of your arms, and also shape. A lot of guys want that horseshoe shape on the side. So again, doing tricep work to build up that area. On the opposite end, I know this is like a very common thing with female clients, but a lot of them do notice the looseness in the back of their arms. And so um, I'm not going to say that tricep work is all you need to do for that. Sometimes it can be loose skin or just body fat, but I think also in general doing triceps is important if somebody wants toned arms, or if women want toned back of the arms. So that's another thing. And then obviously this isn't just upper body, but if somebody wants more sculpted legs, isolating and lower body, there's work that you can do to try to isolate um, your quads, like quad extensions. There's ways to isolate the hamstrings, for example, a ball hamstring curl. I think there's ways to isolate the glutes. Oftentimes, the glutes and hamstrings are together. So even if you're isolating the glutes, you might end up working the hamstrings. But either ways, there's ways to kind of target those parts of your body. And this isn't only about isolation. I think this idea can extend to targeting certain areas of the body versus others. So, for example, a guy that wants broader shoulders can just, but does not necessarily want their chest to get big, can focus more on doing things like overhead presses and lateral, which is a compound movement, but also doing a lot of lateral raises, which target the mid shoulder area. And so that's a way you can work on broadening your shoulders and building up the shoulders, but not necessarily working on targeting your chest as much. And then when they do chest, maybe they can just go light on the chest, do a light chest day. And if this sounds like I'm going in depth, that's because that's kind of what I do myself. So I hope that I'm not boring anyone with that. But anyways, yeah, so isolation work can be used to sculpt the body in a specific way, and there's a lot of different ways to go about it. But I just wanted to kind of open this up because this is the whole define and um, because I do think that's it's an important topic for the channel actually. um, I'm realizing that even more now that I'm talking about it. So maybe a question on top of the question is, do you want to look good? If you want to look good, I think you should do some isolation work. With that said, this is Mozzie here at Lean and Defined. Take care and stay active.